On this episode of Elite Access, we had a chance to speak to the most decorated American fencer in history and Notre Dame's Athlete of the Decade. Mariel Zagunis became the first ever women's saber Olympic gold medalist in the 2004 Olympic Games. And in doing so, she became the first American fencer to win an Olympic gold medal in 100 years. To make it to legend status, she repeated this feat 4 years later at the Beijing Olympic Games, and she added a bronze medal in the team event to her tally. At the 2012 London Olympic Games, she had the distinguished honor of being elected by the U.S. athlete delegation to carry the American flag into the opening ceremony. We discussed all of these monumental feats, what having parents that are also Olympians is like, and how she plans on making history once again in Rio. Mariel Zagunis, welcome to Elite Access. We are so excited and honored to have you on with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so you kind of have the Olympics in your blood. I mean, both your parents were rowers at the 76 Olympic Games in Montreal. What was that like growing up with an Olympic parent? Parents, I guess. What was it overwhelming? Was it cool? Was it just strange? Or I guess you didn't know any different. What was it like?
Yeah, I didn't know any different. I luckily got really good genes from both of my parents to be athletic. So I think being an Olympian is kind of in my blood. And someone asked me about that the other day. They're like, how did you know that you wanted to be an Olympian? And for me, I'm just like, I don't know. It just was an innate feeling. I just always knew that it was something that I was going to do. I always knew that it was something I wanted to be a part of because growing up, I saw my parents. I looked up to my parents. I read about what they did. I saw pictures from the 76 Olympics and some of their Pan Am Games and World Championships they went to. And I just thought, wow, that is such a cool thing. Like, the Olympics seems so fun. It just seems like this, from a very young age, I knew that it was something very special, very unique. It was going to require a lot of hard work to get there, which I didn't realize until much later on in my career. But my parents knew. My parents knew that if me or either of my brothers wanted to take on a sport and take it to that level, they had been there, and so they knew what the type of dedication it was going to take. They knew the drive. They knew what path to put us on, and of course my parents didn't know the first thing about fencing, but they knew that it was something that I was really passionate about, and I owe everything to them from the moment I was born to making my first Olympic team and onward. So it just was never a question in my mind that I would follow in their footsteps. I don't know, it just was always a part of me, a part of my life growing up. So I'm really thankful for that.
That's cool. It'll be interesting to see what your kids are like, if that's going to be kind of the same, a third generation. That's so cool.
I know. I hope so. That's the plan anyway. We'll see though.
That would be neat. So was there any specific advice they gave you as you were kind of going through? Because you picked up a sword and they were rowing boats. So, it's totally different. I don't even know how you kind of got started on that avenue, but I guess was that maybe a good thing that you were in a different sport than what they excelled at? Did that maybe, help them kind of not be too overbearing, or what was there? Was there a balance in that, I guess?
I think there was a good balance when I found fencing. My parents never really pushed rowing too much. We had an ergometer in our house growing up.
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
It's those stationary row machines that they all when they don't go out on the water. It's they have those things, seats you sit in. See, I knew that growing up. I knew that from a young age what that was because my dad would always be working out on it in the room, and I remember at least once, but maybe twice, them putting me on it. I think this was probably right around the time that I found fencing. Just be like, oh, let's try it, let's see, if you like it. Just obviously you're not in the water, so it's not as fun. You're just sitting there basically exercising until exhaustion. And I was a young kid. I was like, no, I don't think this is what I want to do. Maybe if they took me on the water, it would have been a different story. But I'm really glad that they never pushed it on me or my brothers, that they just let us find our own path. And I think that it worked out really well with finding fencing. Luckily we did. My older brother was the one that was into sword fighting and stuff, so that's how I got started. Luckily, because, who knows, you never know if another sport would have taken and I would have had the same level of success. You really, really never know. But I think that obviously fencing was a good match, and it all worked out very nicely. And I think it's helpful that I branched away from rowing. You never know. I could have been a good rower. because of my parents, but I think that it's more so the mentality of knowing, again, knowing what it's going to take, knowing the level of dedication, and from a very young age, they instilled in me this work ethic that I feel like has helped me so much along my career. You know, you don't let obstacles get you down. You really want to set goals for yourself that are right in front of you, but also long-term goals. And that's something that not a lot of young athletes can really think about, because it's hard to conceptualize something that might be so far away. But it's not like I woke up at 17 or 18 years old and said, oh man, the Olympics are in 2 years. I want to win an Olympic gold medal. I better get to work. You know, that's not how it works. Like, you have to say, if this is what I want to do and this is really what I want to do, truly, then I have to be willing to put in the work now to see the results years from now. And that's a hard thing to teach to a kid. I don't think my parents said that exactly to me, but they definitely, through their actions and through the way that they motivated me to never miss practice and to not get down after a loss, after an important competition, things like that, that really kept me going and kept me motivated and kept me realizing there is that bigger goal at hand that we're working towards every day. And that's still something that I think about all the time. You know, Rio is a year away, and it's not like I just woke up yesterday and I was like, oh shoot, I better start training for Rio. It's like, no, this has been a lifelong thing that has been going on, and that's just something really valuable that I've learned from my parents, and I can't wait to pass it on to my kids, who are probably not going to be fencers. So I mean, who knows? Who knows? I'm going to, of course, expose it to them, but you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a lot to live up to, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You first picked up your saber at 10 years old, and you were junior world champion at 16 and an Olympian by 19. So do you think you were just a natural, like, I mean, it just, you kind of got lucky and you just found the right sport, or did you have an amazing coach? Was it this work ethic that your parents instilled in you? I mean, what do you think it took? What was it that made you become so great so quickly at such a young age? Because, like, what's the average age, I guess, of an elite fencer?
I mean, that just depends on what you're looking at. It depends on the discipline, because there's 3 different disciplines on when you might hit your peak. It depends on what country you're from. It depends on your coaching. I mean, everything that you just listed played a role in my success, and they continue to play a role in my success. I think I lucked out. Right place, right time, right coach, right time. I've been working with the same coach for 20 years, my entire career. So of course he's one of the best in the entire world. So that was really lucky for me, especially because he's originally from Poland. So he made his way up to Portland, Oregon from Poland, just right before I started fencing and found the sport. Of course, the motivation from my parents. I mean, everything just really plays a really big role. I've been so fortunate in my life to have great mentors. Both of my parents 100% supportive of this crazy dream I had when I was 10 years old. A coach that knew the ropes, the coach that was successful in his own right before we even got together, and somebody who I trust incredibly to stick with me and to keep working with me through the highs and lows. And same thing goes with my parents. And I don't know, I think is also the natural athleticism helped play a part in really taking off quickly at a young age when I first found the sport. But again, right place, right time. Women's saber, which is my discipline, made its Olympic debut in 2004. So you just never know, what would have happened if it hadn't been accepted into the Olympics. What would have happened if it was accepted 4 years later? Would it have been a different situation? You just never know. So I just am very fortunate. I look back at my story and I'm just like, wow, the stars really aligned perfectly from the beginning. And I realize that I'm very, very fortunate. And so you pair that with my personal desire to be the best, and it just kind of fell into place perfectly. Yeah. So it's nice. I mean, you know how it goes. So
did you, I mean, like from the moment you picked up the sword at like 10 years old, did you know you wanted to be an Olympian, or did that come a few years later?
I think that I knew I wanted to be an Olympian before I found fencing, just because of my parents and the influence that they had.
You just had to find the right sport.
It was like any sport. I played soccer since I was 5, and I don't want to brag, but I was pretty good at soccer too. But of course, that again, it's right place, right time, because you just never know. Being from Portland, would that have given me the opportunities to take soccer all the way up to the Olympic team. Who knows? Who knows if I had found another sport? You just never know. So I think once I did realize that fencing was unique and it was really fun. It was an individual sport, so it was much different than soccer. It just provides you with a different mindset and a different mentality, the way that you set and work towards your goals. So I think finding fencing, I was like, yeah, this now is, I knew I wanted to be an Olympian, but now that I'm doing fencing, I want to be an Olympic fencer. I want to be a gold medal Olympic fencer. And from there on, I just work towards that goal each and every day.
Countdown to the 2004 Olympic Games, and like you said, your event just became an Olympic event, the saber, the women's saber, right?
Yeah.
But they said you were the highest ranked American not to qualify. You actually did not qualify, but weeks before the games, Nigeria pulled out and you were put in. Like, take us through that experience. It's kind of crazy. I mean, how does the highest ranked American not qualify? And all of a sudden it changes and you're heading to Athens. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, that was definitely a tough time in my life up until, of course, being named to be on the team. I was the highest ranked fencer in the world not to be going. So after our qualification period, which ended in March of 2004, I didn't earn enough points to be placed onto the team, which was very heartbreaking for me. Obviously, again, it was a dream that I had had for so long. And I had been so successful up until that point on the world championship level, on the junior world championship level. So to make the Olympic team never seemed like it was not going to happen. I always like, oh, of course, like that's the next natural step of what's going to happen in my career. And to not have made it, of course, was completely devastating. And again, that was in March of 2004, but the official decision was going to be made in June, which was a couple weeks before Athens. So even though I was pretty upset and devastated and really wanted some time away from the sport, that was a big turning point for as far as like decision making, like should I just take a break, should I walk away? But my parents and my coach refused to let me do that. They said, you know what, we're not going to give up on this. At that point, I had taken a year off in between high school and college to train just for this, and I still had a couple of months to just make the best of it type thing. And even though I really felt very devastated, they said, you know what, we've come this far, let's just keep going. Like, as of right now, you're not going to be on the team, but we might as well make best use of our time. We might as well keep training. There were still a couple of international competitions to go to, so they're like, let's just see if you can do really well in those competitions. Just, make the most of the time that you took off to dedicate to fencing. And it was a really good thing that I did because I stayed in the gym. I stayed on top of my game, on top of my fitness. And then a couple weeks before, Nigeria pulled out, which opened up a spot for me, which was really, really fortunate. Again, right place, right time, good timing for me.
During the 2004 Olympics in Athens, you won the very first Olympic gold medal for an American fencer in 100 years. Mm-hmm. And since women's saber made its fencing debut in Athens, you also made history as the very first women's saber fencer to win the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Did you know those things going into the games? Like, nobody's won a medal in this long. This is the first event, and like this is going to be a big deal. Like, was that one of your goals, is to make history, or is it kind of like it happened and you found it all out and it was overwhelming? Or, I mean, what's that like? Because I would think that would be some intense pressure trying to go into like make history, but at the same time you're a very motivated individual. Maybe that's what you like to do. What's your mind like?
For me, throughout my entire career, making history has always come secondary to the results. I am setting these goals for myself personally. Sometimes athletes, especially when you're at a high level, especially when you're a defending champion or somebody who's really successful, there's going to be a lot of pressure on you, outside pressure, external expectations. But I try to keep focused on my own personal expectations. I'm not focusing on, if I win this bout, I'm going to win this record. I'm going to set this record. If I do this, it's going to be so historic. That's not what you should be focused on in any sport at any time. Like, you should be focused on in the moment, scoring that next touch, doing everything perfectly the way that you've been training yourself to do. You shouldn't be thinking ever until after the fact and somebody tells it to you, which is what happened in Athens. you shouldn't be thinking about that, because then you're not focused on the task at hand, which is to win and do your best. So for me, especially in Athens, I think at that point, when I was there competing, and our event is just one day, you do everything in one day, I was just happy to be there. I originally didn't make the team, and then I had this second chance to be there and have this Olympic experience, which is what I always wanted and dreamed of. So for me, I was just excited to compete. I wasn't thinking about any type of history, any type of expectations on that anybody had on me. My expectation was to win an Olympic gold medal. That's what my expectations were from the day that I first picked up a saber. And it was only after the fact that when people were interviewing me and when other people from my delegation came up to me and said, we're making the toast, this is so historic because of it's been 100 years since we won gold, and then it kind of then dawned on me. I was like, oh, I never knew that. I knew that our last fencing medal for the U.S. was in 1984 by Peter Westbrook at the LA Games, but I had no idea that it had been 100 years since gold. I had no idea the significance of it. I was just there to do my thing and have a good time, and luckily I met my own expectations, which was to get that gold medal, and that's all I really cared about. So it's cool to set history simultaneously, but that's not what I'm thinking about when I'm competing, for sure.
Right. That's very cool. Okay, so after 4 years, countless trips to award podiums around the world, you returned to the Olympic Games in Beijing as the defending Olympic champion. And you did, and then some. You captured your second individual Olympic gold medal, and then you went on to add a bronze from the team competition. So how was it different going into Beijing as the defending champion versus going into Athens as just so excited to be there because it was your first games and you actually got to go? I mean, I know you said you focus on your own expectations, but there had to be a lot of external pressure. And how did you field that, and how did you stay focused on the task at hand?
Yeah, there was obviously, being somebody in my first games, a fencer, an athlete who was originally not supposed to be there and then showed up and won, was a very different situation compared to being a defending Olympic champion going into the next Olympics like it was in Beijing. However, I think even though there was a big target on my back and I was kind of one to watch, it still played to my advantage that I had two very strong teammates on the team with me who were ranked very high in the world and who had had a lot of success within those 4 years between Athens and Beijing, that the pressure was there on me, but it wasn't entirely on me. It wasn't like I was, of course I was defending Olympic champion, but there were a lot of other contenders who were in the running for that gold medal. The two of my teammates, but also a lot of other really strong fencers in the world at the time. So I definitely had a lot of pressure on me, but I was just able to find my stride on that day and keep my focus, and again block out everything and anything that was a distraction or any pressure, and it just was able to again fall into place, and I was able to do what I needed to do, what I came there to do, what I trained to do, which was just fence my best on that day. Doesn't matter if it's the Olympics, doesn't matter what title is at stake, doesn't matter if you're a defending champion. I was there to win. I was there to win that competition, end of story, and luckily I was able to really focus and pull out another win 4 years later, which is difficult to do when you think about the pressure that existed. But, you just have to, again, not be focused on that. You have to be focused on scoring 1 point at a time, beating each opponent that gets in your way, and eventually, hopefully, end the day with a gold medal, which is what I was able to do. So, and it was a historic day again, which you try not to think about, but I won gold, and my two teammates, American teammates, got silver and bronze. So we swept the podium, which was absolutely incredible. I mean, historic event. U.S. had obviously, if we didn't win any gold medal, in 100 years, and obviously we had never done that. Right. So that was really, really awesome to be a part of that. Again, setting history, two Olympics back to back.
In my sport, we only have two people in an event. So even if we both were at the top of the podium, it'd only be 1 and 2. Like, so awesome. You guys had 3 people and you swept. I mean, that is so rare and so
it's very
awesome.
rare.
Okay, so fast forward 4 years to London in 2012 at your third Olympic Games, and the U.S. delegation of athletes elected you as their flag bearer for the opening ceremony. I mean, were you surprised? What was that like, carrying the flag into the opening ceremonies in the Olympic arena? I mean, that's just so amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I mean, how many opening ceremonies did you get to walk in? Did you do the opening?
I did all three, yeah, because I was in the middle of the game, so it was never.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So you know how it is. You know how much of a huge deal that is, how it's the most amazing, surreal experience that you could ever have. And I knew that each sport is allowed to nominate somebody to be a flag bearer. I knew that my teammate, we had talked, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to put your name in, just, because of all the history that you set the last two Olympics." And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, why not? You might as well. I'm sure that there's plenty of other athletes out there from way more popular sports that have way more cooler stories than I do. I mean, I know my story is like a great story.
Awesome.
It is awesome, but, fencing, especially at the Olympic Games, when you're trying to compete for the spotlight with all of these other more popular sports, it's kind of difficult to get our time to shine. But somehow it worked out, and it was a huge honor to be selected to be the flag bearer, because you are voted by your fellow athletes. So, to be having this experience alongside of so many athletes that everybody has worked hard to get there, whether it's your first Olympics or third or fifth even. We've all been through highs and lows. We've all dedicated our lives to our sport, and this has all been a dream of all of ours for so long. So to not only be voted to represent all of that hard work, to represent each and every one of those U.S. athletes who has done so much for their sport and for themselves and for their country, and to be the head of that, and to walk through the gates of the opening ceremonies in London, representing all of that for not only the athletes but our country, the greatest country in the world, just was a very, very honorable experience, very surreal. I couldn't believe that I got voted, because it was just, again, I'm like competing, with all those other big name sports and big name athletes. But it means a lot to me to have had that opportunity and to have that privilege to have that experience, and of course walking the opening ceremonies was a lot of fun too. So yeah, it was really surreal, and that was definitely the highlight of the London Games for me.
Going in, you're defending champion again in London, but unfortunately this time you just missed the podium, losing the bronze medal match. How did you react to that? I mean, you rarely lose, it seems like. So, and to be defending again, I mean, how is that different, and how did you handle it? I mean, that's hard. I mean, that's what breaks a lot of people. And here you are still competing, so obviously it didn't completely break you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course, again, no matter what competition it is, and especially the Olympic Games, that my goal is gold. I want to win gold. I want to be at the top of the podium. And I know that I said before, in Athens, there was very little pressure on me. In Beijing, there was a little bit more pressure as defending champion, but I was still able to focus in London as a fencer. To be defending for a third time is almost unheard of. There are very few fencers who have done that. I think maybe only two who have won the Olympics 3 times in a row. But you might want to fact check me on that. I know that there's one Italian fencer, women's foil fencer, who won 3 Olympics in a row and is still competing. But to do that in fencing, I mean, you look at the longevity of fencers, and especially saber fencers. To make it to 3 Olympics, but then to have the chance to win 3 in a row is absolutely incredible. I can tell you that I definitely felt the pressure that time going into London. Like, it definitely felt a lot different than it did the 2 previous Olympics. And I did my best. I fenced that day, and you want everything to come together perfectly. You train your entire life for one day, one moment, a couple of minutes on a strip with an opponent that you can either know really well or not know very well at all. And it's something that not a lot of people can understand. I think only really high-level Olympic athletes can understand what it's like to have one chance every 4 years have everything come together perfectly. And unfortunately for me, it just didn't pan out the way that I expected it to. So of course I was devastated. I mean, I had never known a loss at the Olympics at that point. You know, I had gone to 2 Olympics and had only known what it felt like to end the day on a high note and to end the day on a victory and a gold medal. So it was very shocking for me. It was very rattling. I am not going to lie that I was extremely devastated and not happy. But I mean, who wouldn't be? You know, if you look at any elite athlete or any athlete who takes their sport very seriously, we hate to lose. It's not fun to lose, you know. And with fencing, it's tough because again, it's an individual sport, so all that pressure is on you when it really comes down to it. So I was very disappointed in myself. And as you said, you know, it's like, how would it not break you? But you know, I had to look back at my performance and say, you know, this was not something I was happy with. So I'm going to go to Rio and I'm going to make sure that I have everything aligned again so it falls into place and that I can get another gold medal, because that's what I want. That's what I always want is to win and to perform well and fence well. And I know that when I fence well, I'm the best fencer in the world, one of the best fencers in the world, and I know that I can do it. So it's, you know, when you have your own expectations and you know that you're capable of winning and you don't, of course it's going to be frustrating. But yeah, Rio's a year away and I'm working really, really hard because I don't want to feel that way again. I want to feel the way that I felt in Athens and Beijing, and that's all. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to, you know, keep some secrets in my back pocket and kind of bring them up again in a year from now, and hopefully that'll end me on the top of the podium.
I love that you let it light a fire and you didn't let it just destroy you. That's a true champion right there. Well, something I want to ask you from that, like, because you're 30 now, young lady.
Yeah.
I got made fun of a lot in Beijing. Well, not made fun of, but they kept saying like, oh, her competitors are half her age, and I was 30. I was like, yes, it's great. Can you guys stop saying that? So, are you now like the grandma fencer, or are people like, do they compete into their 30s in fencing? Like, I don't. In my sport, like, you usually quit. You know, if you make it into your mid 20s, that's old. So.
Yeah, every sport is different, and in fencing, every discipline is different. You look at the average ages for, well, the men, of course, are on average, much older. And then the women, especially in women's saber, is actually, on average, the youngest discipline. But age is nothing but a number, and I don't care what people say. I mean, it's the same thing, like you said, it's when I first made my first senior team, which is like, for us, it's like Olympic level senior. I was 15, and I remember being on that team with other fencers who were 30 or 30 something, and being like, oh man, they're more than twice my age. That's so weird. And now I look at, I'm still on the senior team. I just got back from World Championships in Moscow, and there were some 16-year-olds walking around and you know, 17, 18. And I'm just like, that's just crazy to me, because now I'm on the complete other side. Right. But for us, it doesn't matter, you know. Of course it matters physically. Like, you might feel a little more tired, you might be more susceptible to injury, knock on wood everywhere. But, you know, it's about your passion for the sport, and it's about staying on top. And I don't feel 30 in my mind. I don't think that it matters. And I do get asked that question a lot more, and probably leading up to Rio, and in Rio, it's going to be annoying for people to say, oh, what does that mean for you? How much longer can you go? And it's like, you know, I'm going to be done when I say I'm done. Don't tell me that I can't go through our mid-30s. And you know, women's saber doesn't see that a lot. You know, like the number one girl in the world right now is 25, and in fencing, or she's 24. Anyway, in fencing, the difference between 24 and 30, at least for me personally, I feel it physically, but our sport is so mental that that's where you really have to be strong, and experience can play a really big role in success. So I'm not worried about it. I mean, I'm just going to keep going until I say I'm going to stop. There's no age cutoff. There's no anything that says that you have to be done by a certain age. And
I love
So
that.
just
You have my vote.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes. It's like
Totally.
no, I mean, of course, for certain sports it might make a bigger difference, but um, I'm all about making history, so
There you go. I
might
mean,
as well
hey,
just keep
stars
going.
are going to align again. Yes, I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you about your consistency because you are so consistent. And I feel like in my career I was just like this. I was all over the place. And I feel like you have been at the top of the world like every single year. I mean, you're always up there. And heading into Rio, your fourth Olympic Games, there you are. You're still one of the top fencers in the world. You won a silver medal at last year's World Championships. You just finished off your season this summer with a team gold in the Pan Am Games. I mean, you're doing amazing. So how do you maintain that level year after year? I mean, is your training just always the same and you're trying to stay the same, or are you always trying to change and reinvent yourself and how you do it? Like, what is it that keeps you so even keel? Is it all upstairs, or what is it?
I think that's a very good question, because I think that it has a lot to do with there's a lot that has to do with staying consistent. In our sport, it's extremely mental. Like they call it physical chess for a very good reason, because you're out there competing against. You're not competing against a clock. You're not competing for judges that are on the sidelines. You have one judge on the sideline, but you're competing literally against another human being, another mind, another free-thinking entity that is going to try to cut off all of your moves just at the same time you're trying to cut off all of theirs. So it's a very complicated dance that we do out there, and it of course, is amplified by the fact that everything is on video. So everybody's always watching video of everybody all the time. And so it's almost like there's no secrets. So when you step on the strip, especially at a World Championships or Pan Am Games or the Olympic Games, there's almost nothing to be hidden, so part of the most important thing about our sport is to not only be incredibly strong physically, but you have to be very strong mentally. You have to have a lot of tools in your pocket. And one thing that really has helped me stay on top all of these years is working with one of the best coaches in the world. My coach Ed knows the game like nobody's business, and he's also a really good inventor. So he's always coming up with something that'll help keep me a couple of steps ahead of the game, and he's very, very smart. And I think that we make an amazing team when it comes to the trust and creativity that we have. So you have to be able to be constantly reinventing yourself. And on top of that, the sport is constantly changing too. So everything wrapped together, it's basically every practice is literally a new day. Like you're there learning something new. You're there sharpening your tools that always work for you, but you always have to have secrets. You always have to have something in your back pocket. And you always have to be unpredictable when you come to these competitions. And the moment that you start to be stagnant in your repertoire, the moment that you think that, oh, nobody can ever figure me out because I've been unbeaten the past two Olympics, well, it's like that is even more of a reason to start figuring out a different plan, because the moment that people catch up to you is the moment that you need to be, again, 2 steps ahead of them. So I think that's what it comes down to, is my coach is a genius. We're always coming up with new things to try out and new strategies to have, so we're constantly unpredictable, because that's what it comes down to.
Unpredictable. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that too. I like it. So it's I think that that's also one thing that has kept my interest and motivation in this sport so strong, is that every week there's something new to be learned. Every competition there's a lesson there, or there is you see somebody else doing something new and you're like, uh-oh, I better figure that out. I better figure her out. I better again, just being ahead of the game, ahead of the wave. For yourself, but also paying attention to what other people are doing too. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I think that that's kind of what makes it never get old for me, is that I'm always learning. I'm always learning and always wanting to improve upon myself, and that's almost not all the motivation, but that's a lot of the majority of motivation. Is I get in that gym every morning and I'm like, all right, what knowledge can I soak up now, and how can I make myself better, and then on top of that, constantly trying to improve everything that's already existing. So it's a very, very complicated sport. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but it's so much more mental than it is physical. So it's maintaining everything and really trying to not let people hit that target on your back, because it's always going to be there.
Well, is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to share with people, or tips or words of wisdom, or what would you like to impart to anybody before we go?
I think one important thing to keep in mind, whether you are just starting a sport as a young kid, whether you are an amateur athlete, whether you have dreams of going to the Olympics and winning gold, or just applying this to life, that you have to realize that there are going to be hard times. There are going to be obstacles, and there are going to be times when it's not fun. And I think the difference between people who are successful and the people who don't quite reach their goals is the fact that you are able to persevere through anything that comes your way. And also, along with that, having long-term plans for what it is you really want to achieve. If you are just starting a sport and you're a young kid, or you're a parent and your kid has expressed interest in something, it doesn't even have to be sports, but they say, I want to be the best, or they say, or you say, to yourself, I want to do X, Y, and Z with this. And you are really serious about that. Like, you can look yourself in the mirror, in the eye, and say, this is really what I want to do. I really do want to be the best in that. Then starting today, starting right now, that's what you have to do. You have to go forward day one from here on out, one step at a time. Like, those goals are not going to come easy, but as long as you chip away at them each and every day, then you're going to wake up one day and realize that you're getting a gold medal put around your neck, or you're going to be realizing that you're getting that award, or getting that job, or you're getting accepted to that college, or whatever it is. You can't cram for these major goals. You have to really set out a long-term plan for yourself, and remind yourself all the time of what it is that you're working towards. So especially when times get rough, you can say to yourself, oh yes, not only is this going to pass if I keep working really hard to get through it, but this is necessary for me to get through this, to get one step closer to that goal. So I guess in summary, I would say just never give up, and always remember what you're doing it for. And as long as you still really want to do it for those reasons, then nothing should stop you, whether it's a defeat or a rejection or somebody saying that you can't. Like, I just think you just really need to stick with it, and remember that you just got to believe in yourself and surround yourself with people who believe in you.
I love it. You make me want to get back in the pool.
I know. Well,
I think we need to hang out more.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on. You are full of wisdom and just awesomeness, and we will be cheering you on your road to Rio next year.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Elite Access, and don't forget, you can gain an even greater advantage by answering the questions that go along with this episode and checking out all the extra resources.